process of developing common curricula was, from the beginning, was a real challenge. If you want to harmonize, standardize the curricula with the school with different approach, is not easy. Then probably such a project would be too difficult with the condition that we had at the beginning, and we didn't consider that you have to make partnership with school with a similar approach, although in different countries.
Diciamo che effettivamente siamo in Europa, ok? E Europa è così, diciamo, un continente fatto di tantissimi paesi, tantissimi stati, e un po' la nostra, possiamo dire, la nostra particolarità, no? In un certo senso. Però è vero che noi abbiamo un nesso comune, no? Noi pensiamo, no? Nel mio caso, no? Sono, diciamo, di un paese, diciamo, del Mediterraneo, e pensiamo che effettivamente non abbiamo poche cose in comune con la Svezia, per esempio, no? Non succede lo stesso tra la Spagna e l'Italia. Però è vero, diciamo, che quando uno, diciamo, si coinvolge in un progetto come questo, si rende conto che a volte, diciamo, quel sistema o quel paese che ci sembra più vicino, no? A volte presenta più difficoltà che quello che, no, è più lontano dalla nostra cultura, dal nostro modo di pensare, e infatti questo è la cosa più importante, diciamo. Come possiamo riunire questi sistemi? Cioè, praticamente, vedendo che l'unione di questi sistemi, quello che provocherà è un arricchimento, no? del mondo dell'istruzione. Infatti, lo scopo dell'istruzione è arrivare, diciamo, al maggior numero di persone possibile, no?
Right from the beginning, the great challenge in this project was to have students follow different, let's say, courses of study, different approaches, different methodology, living in another country, keeping the usual standard of quality they were used to at home. This meant that the topics being taught and also the approaches to these topics and the methodology for teaching had to be shared among the teachers to a great deal and accepted.
I'm not so well acquainted with those systems. I'm well acquainted with the Swedish, but But what I've learned about other countries' system is that they do read subjects. They do, and we do courses. So that's the difference. And in assessment, there is a difference, because in Swedish schools we do not. If a student is rude, you do not grade that. You don't care if he or she is very rude, because it doesn't mean anything when it comes to grades. But I learned that both in Italy and Spain, it means something when a student is rude. It's actually into the grades. And I also learned that in Sweden we expect our students to analyze a lot and to reflect about their studies and actually to use their knowledge. And we think there is a little bit difference, that in other countries they maybe learn and then they repeat when they do the exams.
There are lots of elements that may differ from our Italian system to, for example, the Swedish system, which is rather far from ours in terms of a lot of things. The relation between students and their teachers is much less formal here. So the Swedish students in Italy now, for the first time in their life, feel that they have to address their teachers as professor and then the surname, just to give you just a basic common practice. Apart from that, they are so used to working in groups, while we place much more importance on individual work. And they spend so many hours at school doing things together, and may I use a more philosophical term, maybe finding meaning together in what they do, while we place a lot of importance, once again, on homework and on the sense that students may find in what they do at home, reflecting and thinking.
So there's a little bit of difference, I think. The Swedish system, the students do have a lot of influence in their studies, and they have a lot of choices they can make. So I think it varies a lot from that. And I do not know about the other countries, but in Sweden parents are very active into school matters, and I can't really say how it is in Italy and Spain, but here they are very, very much into school. Even if the youngsters are of age, they are still very, very interested and dedicated to school.
There are very different ways with which we try to educate their thinking process. But the interesting thing is that in the difference, the knowledge and awareness of differences may retroact, may feedback on the way you teach your students at home. And this is also happening. Some of my colleagues adopted systems that are much more in line with the Swedish system rather than with the Italian. And for example, project work, which is a thing that in Italy not many teachers apply at a secondary school level, especially in schools that have a strong academic vocation like ours. Our aim is to prepare good future potential university students. So we insist a lot on cognitive notions and so on, and probably we are a little less aware of what the soft skills and the cross subject skills may be rather than here.
Yes, I've been collaborating with two teachers, one from Spain and one in Italy, and I think the collaboration has worked very well. What has been difficult really maybe is that our courses are a little bit different. It has been difficult at times to understand the levels. Are we at the same level? We have different grade systems. Also the fact that, for example, in Sweden we're not allowed to grade efficiency, for example, grade the students per se in that way, only what they achieve, the level they're at when it comes to their abilities in the subject.
To develop a common curricula, creating group work among colleagues is a difficult task. There was no conflict, I think. There was a good experience. The work was done with some meeting in some country. We did a meeting at the beginning in Reggio Emilia in Italy. Then we did a meeting in Spain with all the teachers, and then smaller meeting in Sweden, and a meeting in Cyprus. So there was meeting and a continuous work online between the group of the different teachers. So there was this art group, science group, mathematics group that continually they were meeting online to develop what they had to develop.
Yeah, the process started with me reading the documents from Italy and Spain in physical education, and to find out if we had some common stuff with teaching, or which type of teaching we are making in Sweden and Italy and Spain. It was my first thoughts was that it should be really hard to find common subjects, but then afterwards we found some common subjects, and me and Alessia, we were only 2 teachers in physical education from the beginning, and we could communicate well, and we could get along, and we had the same thoughts about teaching, so it wasn't so problematic that I supposed it would be. It was quite easy to find this common subject, and we got lots of time.
I don't think it's an easy process, because not all the colleagues or the teacher want to be involved in such a project. And for this reason, I think it's very important the involvement of the director of the school, because each teacher can defend the project, but it's only the director of the school that can aggregate the people and say, okay, this is a project of the school, it's not a project of one teacher or one class. And so the officialization and the promotional project within all the colleagues done by the director has another power, and also time. I think that you cannot involve them at the very end, or so you have to. It's a project that to prepare a school for such a type of project, you need few years of mentality in the school to prepare for this. It was a pilot project, they said that's okay, but I think that for another occasion you have to prepare them with a 2-3 years of mentality among the teacher.
Well, the way we chose to bridge these gaps was a continuous and frequent, let's say, frequent comparison, and so confronting what we do and the way we do it. We finally came up with the idea that it was possible to share a lot of things, even in such distant school cultures. As a way to put it, teaching is the same everywhere. I mean, you have to love what you do, and the students will feel it. And I found that both our Swedish colleagues and our colleagues in Spain loved their job very much. and this is something that you can see in the students that you have. I mean, if you manage to transmit your enthusiasm, they will really get accessible to what you have in mind to do with them. So that's it.
I think we did have a look a lot at the requirements for the different courses, and of course we had long discussions on what was to be included, what was generally covered in the different courses in the different countries. But of course there were differences, so that was a little bit difficult. And of course, when it comes to the school, since I was first and foremost in the project for Spanish, and of course the school in Spain had students that were native speakers or almost native speakers. Of course, since it's an Italian school, some had lived maybe there only for a few years, but still, so it was difficult to find an equal level maybe between the students, I would say. So it took some work, and it was a little bit difficult, but I think we got there. And of course it had to be topics also when it comes to the modules that we worked on. It had to be topics and themes that we found of importance to our students also.
I think that it's a big value for our students to meet students coming from another culture and also from another school environment, because they'll really talked lots about how the school is built and how they are teaching, and it's quite different the teaching, how you teach in Italy and how you teach in Sweden, and also just having lunch here paid in Sweden. The Italian students are not used to this, so I think it's good for our students to get some new ideas of culture and how we do in Sweden and how it fits out in other countries, and also of course think the students coming here, they are really getting to learn about Swedish culture and maybe to have a more global thinking about the world. I think now in EU, in European Union, that we can adapt and fit in, and having new friends maybe abroad is not so bad if you are going to keep in touch later. So I think this is a value for my students, of course.
I think the working together of colleagues to develop the common curricula was probably one of the nicest experiences, because there was very good collaboration between the colleagues of the three countries. We did it partially with the group work, so divided in subjects, partially with the plenary discussion, because at the end, each subject, the teacher of the three countries, they could decide which topics in which year and everything, but then we have to find some common point where, for example, all the students have to go to the same classes. Although it's not easy because each topic has different sequence during the 3 or 4 or 5 years of secondary school. So we did a mix of group work and plenary work.
One thing that impressed me from Spanish education, it was that maybe it's not a curricular, but in the school, the Italian school in Madrid, they have some thematic learning about physical education and with biology. So they work together, physical education and biology, to make some testing your heartbeats and your heart rate and your VO2 max together, and they had one whole day outside working with this, and that one gave me some impressions, and I already talked to my colleagues here teaching in biology to try to find out something to work out together here as well. So that was positive.
I think the added value for teachers that engage in this process is number one, the awareness and knowledge that there are many ways possible to do what we are called to do. And what we are called to do is to prepare young generations for the future, or help prepare young generations for the future. Being aware that some people are doing different things in a different way, or the same thing in a different way, or maybe the same way but a different thing. Many combinations are possible. Gives you the idea that you should reflect upon what you do and the way you do, and for how long you do it, and on your way to be in class with your students.
Well, when being in such a project, I think there are some difficulties, as I said before, but I think it's a good way to develop as a teacher. For me, it's been, of course, a chance to speak more Spanish, which is quite difficult in Sweden, to speak with foreign colleagues. It has also been interesting but fun to mix in Spanish class, to having to mix Spanish, English and Swedish. So there I've had to work with 3 languages. Maybe if I translate, I would be used to translating Spanish to Swedish, but now it's been all 3 languages. And I think the students have been very positive to that, and I would say that the overall the students usually have, the Swedish students have a good level of English, so I can't really see that that's been a problem for them. And also, of course, it's a great value to get to know more about other cultures. So it's, of course, it's language-wise, but it's also the culture aspect that is important. And to, of course, maybe having to think about other ways to teach also.
So I think that effect number one and the added value for teacher was exactly this, that is to gain more awareness about the way we teach. And I think that even, I guess that in all the school partners there was resistance, and there still is resistance to having students go over for 2 months. And so maybe those of us who are most traditional in the way they see education will consider this a waste of time, and or maybe too resources spent on something that is not worth the cost in human and financial terms. And I think that we have to persuade, in a way, to win these people one by one. I mean, simply being examples of how we have changed and we have evolved, we have professionally learned something. If we can play this role inside our own institution, I think it will be a great achievement for the institution as a whole. In terms of having more ideas shared, in terms of having more ideas that are circulating among teachers.